Rep Khanh Pham, thanks so much for coming in to talk to me today. With these transportation road shows going on all over the state, I think tomorrow is a virtual one, which is the 11th one. I was at the first one in Portland back in early June, but after the following one in Tillamook out on the coast, I haven't been tuning into all of them. So I thought you'd be a good person to come and get us up to speed on where things are at and help folks understand the importance of listening in or even testifying at the virtual one on Wednesday, tomorrow. So thanks for coming in.
Happy to be here.
I'm just curious how many of these. Well, first, I should tell folks these road shows are, if you haven't read about it on Bike Portland or otherwise, this is where the Joint Committee on Transportation, which is a committee down in Salem, it's actually a co-committee, so there are folks from the House and the Senate in it. They are trying to gain feedback all over the state and doing a tour to listen to Oregonians and have Oregonians tell them about what they should invest in 2025 in terms of putting together a transportation package, which is going to have maybe billions of dollars in funding for all these different priorities. So that's what we're talking about. So Rep Pham, I'm curious, how many of these have you actually attended since you are a member of the Joint Committee?
Yes, I have been to the majority of the roadshow stops. So I went to the one in Tillamook County, Albany, Eugene, the Dalles, Medford, and then next week we have Hillsborough and Happy Valley. There's also been
Wow.
roadshows in Bend and Hermiston in Ontario.
Wow. Okay. So you have definitely heard a lot of feedback from folks. I'm curious, are there any themes about what you're hearing from people? Anything surprising to you about what you're hearing?
Well, one thing that was surprising to me is I assumed, sometimes we hear like, oh, the problems of urban areas are so different. You wouldn't understand the problems in rural areas. And I've been really surprised but heartened to hear a lot of common themes, particularly around public transit. We often think of public transit as an urban priority, but actually, if anything, I've heard more support for public transit in rural communities where they don't have any other option. And so I remember some really compelling testimony from some older folks in the Dalles who talked about how they, never really thought much about public transit until they needed it, until they had an injury just growing older and suddenly depend now on their rural area public transit to be able to get to the doctor, to be able to even get to the hair salon. They said, I deserve to live with dignity and be able to go to the hair salon. And that those kinds of stories I heard across the state. Coos Bay talked about having no seats, a bus going up 101 full of young people and elderly people, but particularly young people, and with no empty seats, standing room only. It's something that communities across the state depend on to be able to get to work, to school, to healthcare, and how vital it was really was underlined by seeing it heard across the state.
And you know as well as I do that there are a lot of folks out there who are burnt out and maybe distrustful or just don't think that testifying to state legislators is going to matter. On that specific thing about rural transit, can you say that there's actually a real possibility that funding could be increased for rural transit as a result of this roadshow?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen it through the past. In 2017, through House Bill 2017, we were able to create what's called the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, or STIF with an F. And this has really allowed rural transit agencies across the state, both in small towns and just in county areas, to be able to invest in the transit services that are adapted to their community. And so we've seen that work in 2017. And I can definitely say as a legislator, I think when people come with personal stories too, that's what people remember. I will remember the man who was in recovery talking about how his bus pass, his subsidized bus pass, allowed him to get to treatment across town that otherwise he wouldn't have been able to do, and he wouldn't have been on the road to recovery without that transit bus pass. So those are the kinds of stories that legislators will remember. And really what I'm committed to prioritizing based on what I've heard during the roadshow is that we need to be expanding this program. It's been so critical to folks across the state, folks in addiction, folks who are elderly, folks who have disabilities, young people, anyone who just doesn't want to drive a car. We need to be expanding this as part of the statewide transportation package.
I think quite a few people watching this will have a sense of your values, where you come from transportation wise, just in terms of your perspective. I can see that the poster, the right size right now, a poster behind you. I'm wondering if you can share anything. I know you can't speak for anybody else, but some of your colleagues on the Joint Committee, uh, what do you think they're taking away? Are there people showing up at these saying, "Look, we really need bigger interchanges and we need bigger freeways because I'm worried that if we give too much space to transit or whatever, that there's going to be congestion." Are those things being heard? Do you think your colleagues are taking away a lot different messages than you are?
Absolutely not. I have heard virtually no, very, very little testimony about widening any Portland area freeways. And I think it's partly because people have been mostly focused on direct needs, and our needs are so staggering across the state. We heard from folks in Medford who talked about the fires the 2021 Labor Day fires, and how ODOT workers were actually the ones who helped evacuate. They were on the roads helping people figure out this is the way you evacuate. And if right now ODOT is facing such dire budget shortfalls that they'll have to fire 1,000 workers, including some of those workers who helped with evacuation, if we don't find a solution. And so I think people are just so focused on their particular needs, whether it's public transit, whether it's safe routes to school, whether it's
Hmm.
just basic maintenance of the roads, so we don't actually let our roads crumble into gravel, that there's left little room for talking about like these huge mega projects. And so I think we're going to have to make some tough choices, which I think legislators are starting to understand, that given that we do have limited resources, that we're going to have to make some tough choices about what truly, truly we need to prioritize.
As you're listening to folks testify, I'm curious, what are the things that are going to make you, take out your pen and jot a note down? Are there specific things about this process that you're looking to hear from people, or things that you're just like going to perk up for when you hear, or like what are there some specifics maybe about future funding models, or like a topic within this that, I know you like transit and all that, but I mean, just, is there anything else in terms of specific policy you're looking for insight on from Oregonians?
Well, when testify, one, I just want to encourage people to sign up to testify. It's always great when people bring their own personal story, and aren't afraid to share their heart. I remember Megan Ramey from Hood River, when she shared, she was the only one who's mentioned joy. Like, we just need. She said, kids have a right to joy. They have a right to be able to bike to the park, and they have a right to. She shared a story about her son wanting to go to soccer camp or some kind of sports camp in Portland, and they live in Hood River. And so she allowed him to take some kind of transit bus or shuttle service to Hood River, to Portland from Hood River, and how that was part of his development, and how much confidence he got from being able to navigate the public transit system. And that's part of a rite of passage for teenagers to be able to do. And how we deprive our kids of that sense of autonomy and joy when we don't have a transportation infrastructure. And just, she showed pictures. It was very analog. She just like printed out photos of kids in a bike bus, and just held it up. But that was memorable, because we often get angry, unhappy people, and so it's nice to see people just talk about joy and what they love about are these transit investments as well. So I guess I would encourage people to just bring their whole heart and their full selves into their testimony, because I think that's what people remember more than the the numbers and the statistics. Though those are really important too. I don't, yeah, just combining the statistics with personal stories.
Okay. And the one that's coming up tomorrow is the only one that's virtual. So for folks that haven't been able to get to one of the stops so far, this is going to be the one that maybe they can take part in. Can
Yeah.
you let folks know what to expect at the virtual roadshow hearing tomorrow?
Well, you only will have 2 minutes to speak, but so please practice ahead of time to make sure that you can keep get all your key points in. And yeah, just, I think, get ready to just jump right in and say what you need to say. And I hope people can also try to attend Happy Valley in Hillsborough,
Hmm.
if that's possible too. If you are able to come in person, Happy Valley in Hillsborough, you can Google Oregon Transportation Roadshow testimony, and I'll share with you links on how to sign up to testify. But virtual is also a really great option for folks who can't travel, and that's in Salem tomorrow.
Yeah, and that those then the last two after the Salem are Happy Valley on the day after, so Thursday the 26th, and then on Hillsborough just the Friday on the 27th. So you're winding down this tour here, which is maybe exciting for you. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's been a lot of extra work, but I just wonder if there's anything else that you'd like to share about these hearings.
Well, I guess I will share for specifically for City of Portland readers. I know a lot of your readers are concerned about. They want to make sure that PBOT has the resources to build out their bike plan, and also I know folks in East Portland where I live want to make sure we have enough money to build sidewalks and fix some of our most dangerous streets. And one part that we need to be talking about is the importance of city and county funding. Folks are focused a lot on ODOT and the state roads, but we also need to protect the 50-30-20 split, which ensures 50% goes to the state, but 20 and 30% go to city and counties. And that's so critical if we want the city of Portland to be able to do the really important safety maintenance work that they do to ensure that all of our Portlanders get to get around safely and with as many mobility options as possible.
Great. Okay, I'll be paying attention to that funding formula split conversation because since you mentioned it, maybe there's something going on where some folks think it should be changed. So we'll watch that
Some
closely.
people
It's
think that the state doesn't have a responsibility for those city and county roads, and I disagree.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thanks for that. And before I let you go, I wanted to say thanks for your work on supporting local news around Oregon. I know it's sort of unrelated to this topic, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't have support from, well, folks in the community first, but to have a legislator bringing this up down in Salem is really meaningful. So I appreciate that.
Well, I will say, I actually think I thought about Bike Portland when I was thinking about it and how important Bike Portland is for even informing me as a legislator. I need journalists on the ground telling me about conditions on the ground to help me do my job. And without a healthy local journalism and informational ecosystem, all of us can't have a healthy democracy. So thank you for your work to help promote democracy.
You're welcome, Rep Fam. Thanks so much for coming on. Good luck.
Thanks. Have a good day.